welcome to Garden Fork Radio. A special episode here. We have Rick and Mike. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing, my friends?
Well, cue the music.
Mike is with one of the original Garden Fork Radio hosts, and he comes back from time to time. And Rick, Mike, and I actually talk a lot by email, a lot. And then Rick and Mike had some time, and so we just thought we'd record a show for you all. So thanks for listening, everybody.
You bet. Mike, how you been, my friend? We haven't heard from you in a good long time.
I've been really good. Kind of getting back in the swing of things, and we've gotten into a home now where we can have a garden. And I've been doing some cycling and some home repairs and stuff. And I listened to one of the rerun shows.
Archive show called
Archive. I'm sorry. Archived treasures.
That's it.
that were unearthed a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, man, I'd like to do another show. So I was really happy that you sent me an email.
Well, somebody thought of you and prodded us, kind of reminded us. We were looking at the reviews on iTunes.
Yeah, we have some new iTunes reviews.
Yeah, J.M. Buffy mentioned you and said how much he enjoyed hearing you and that he really missed you. And we said, well, that's right. We haven't heard from Mike, and we also have plans to have Garden Fork scientist Tony on pretty soon. So we're expanding out. It's spring, and so lots of stuff is happening. So there's lots of stuff to talk about.
So what's it like, Mike, to go back into gardening? You had a couple of years off there because you weren't in a home that you could garden in, and now are you kind of like bringing some experience and think, well, I'm not going to do it this way, I'm going to do it a different way this time, or what's your plans?
Well, I think so a little bit, because one, I should say I don't feel nervous, but I feel like, okay, it's all timing here, and I'm afraid I'm going to do something too early or too late. But then I remembered, well, you're a Garden Fork guy. It doesn't matter. Right? What are you going to do? To quote Eric from a long time ago, you're not sending people to Mars. You're planting a garden. It doesn't matter. Just get out there and do it. And the one big difference from the past was we just kind of dig out a patch in the garden, in the yard, and turn over the soil there, maybe throw something on top of it, and start growing in there. My dad a long time ago was a big fan of railroad ties going around it, and so that's kind of what I learned and what I did. But I don't know if railroad ties are that great to have around your garden with the stuff that they treat them with.
No, creosote, not so good.
Yeah. So there's that bit, and then there's watching Eric's videos doing the raised bed, which seems much, on one hand, much easier to do because you're not digging into the ground and having to turn that up. You build a frame and get soil into it. The hard part is ordering the soil and getting it out. So I do know that I've got to get that probably ordered right away.
Right.
Because everything is starting to thaw and they're going to have a run, and I'm probably going to have to figure out how big the bed I'm going to have, and then call the garden supply place. Because once they sell out of their garden soil, they're done. They'll sell you regular black soil.
Yeah.
Right.
But not their garden mix, as other stuff mixed in with it.
Right, you have a compost mix. Right? You want the garden mix. You don't want straight topsoil will not yield a very good garden.
Right. So these are things I've learned in the past, and I do know that now. Okay, well, it's a little bit easier that I'm not going to be digging in the ground, but I'm going to be making a lot of trips back and forth from the driveway into the backyard with a wheelbarrow. So.
Well,
there's no getting out of some of the work, but that's okay. But
you can think about doing it though in stages. That's the way I've done it. You could start off getting the Bartholomew book on square foot gardening. We talked about that last week, and do a smaller spring summer garden. And while you're at it, begin preparing another piece of property that you build up more naturally with leaves and yard litter and going around your neighborhood and grabbing all your neighbors' leaves and throwing them into it, so that you come fall you'll have a nice big garden. Of course, around here, fall gardening is actually a better time for us to garden than spring. But probably for you, it's spring is the big one. But what I'm saying is you can do it in stages. You don't have to do a really big garden all at once.
I plan on just starting out with one raised bed, not terribly large. I don't know, probably 4x8, something like that. And I know you can cram a lot of stuff in there, because the other thing is I do have other stuff going on, and I don't want to bite off more than I could chew. I'm really bad about that, where I start a real big project and get halfway done, as opposed to just like starting small. So that is a good idea. But I'm. You guys tell me, 4x8. Does that sound like it's biting off too much?
Oh no, that's about right.
No, and you can crank a lot out of that. I'd actually put tomatoes in buckets or containers. I wouldn't even put the tomatoes in that raised bed, and I'd focus more on salad greens in the raised bed.
That was something that we talked about in that archived show, was something that I had tried with, which was bag gardening. Which one year I had no time at all. I just took the bag and put stuff in there. So I probably going to do a little bit of that as well. I might make it look a little nicer than having Scott's grow bags.
Yeah, one of my neighbors has a he just loves to grow tomatoes in a straw bale. He'll go get a couple of bales of hay and dig out a hole and put a little dirt in it and put the tomatoes in the bale, and they will just kind of overspill it. And then at the end of the season, it's kind of broken down. He puts the hay into his garden. Of course, you got to be careful not to get a herbicide-treated hay, but it works out pretty good. There are a lot of different ways to grow tomatoes.
Well, that's what I was gonna mention. That was a mistake that I did learn from in the past, where to hold weeds down, you can throw straw down on your garden, right?
Mm-hmm.
To kind of let the good plants through and choke off everything else. And I think I bought a bale of straw one year, not straw, hay instead of straw, and had just a mess of weeds. It had the opposite effect, because it had other seeds in it, and it was a disaster. So I don't know, because it's straw you want to get, right? Or
exactly.
Straw mulch.
Yeah, I say hay, but I mean straw.
You can also get bales of I don't know, it's called degerminated hay, but it's a compressed bale of like a straw hay mulch, and it's been heat treated to neutralize the seeds that are in that bale. And they're not that expensive. And it's kind of neat, because you open up the bale and it kind of goes poof, and it kind of becomes 4 times the size.
Yeah.
That is amazing how much comes out of that.
Yeah, my other thought there was I am actually going to try some straw bale gardening this year, and you do have to kind of pre-treat the bales before you drop stuff in it. There's a fellow named Eric at rootsimple.com that has some posts about straw bale gardening, and I was going to kind of follow his lead. But one of the things I know people do is they'll take amendments like blood meal and compost and lay it in on top of the straw bale and plant into that. So it'd be kind of interesting to see how that all works out this year.
Sounds like it'd make some interesting videos.
The other thing about biting off more than you can chew, I was actually tapping more sugar maples this morning.
Mm-hmm.
My neighbors said, Eric, you can tap all our maples. And they're all, big old maples along the country road. And my neighbors were helping me. They're like, well, Eric, how many are you going to do? And we're going to do 3. And they're like, why just 3? I'm like, because I have to do something with all the sap. Because I see all these sugar maples and I want to tap them all. And I've learned to reel myself in, because for every maple you tap, that's how many hours of boiling that you're out there boiling away at. So I got better at dialing back my goals there.
Well, not just the boiling, but then aren't you running back and forth between, like, the more trees you add, the more buckets of stuff you have to make sure aren't overflowing? And
yeah, it's a lot of exercise. It's like, wet, cold, liquid in snow.
Yeah.
Unless you've got the Christopher Kimball super network of tubes.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, but even if you do that, then you have to worry about a bear or something walking through your tubes and breaking them, and all your stuff running out into the ground. So, there's always something, isn't there?
Yeah, but we actually last night I treated some friends to some maple tree sap in glasses, just as a little drink, and it was just kind of neat because I poured some off of a couple of the jugs I had, and the ice had frozen in there a little bit, so the water freezes first, so it concentrates the sap a little more, and so I just poured it into glasses, and we all had a couple sips of tree sap, and it was a really neat taste, very subtle maple syrupy water stuff. It was fun.
Yeah, I was wondering if you'd taste much of it because how much do you have to boil? It's like 40 to 1 or something, right?
Right. It can vary. Like right now, it's running 30 to 1, but 40 to 1 is usually a little more normal. But at the end of the at the beginning of the sap season, it's more concentrated, and at the end of the season, it becomes less concentrated. So I usually stop before the end of the season. But there we go. So Mike, the other thing you were talking about in our emails was DIY bike maintenance, which intrigues me because I know how to fix lots of things, but my bike I take to the shop.
Yeah, I was doing the same thing because I've got a road bike and it's kind of a fancy one, and I was intimidated by the fine tuning
Mm-hmm.
of them. They're I just it was an expensive bike. I didn't want to mess it up,
Yeah.
you know, and so I was a little afraid of it, but it goes against my very nature, right? To pay guys to do stuff I could do myself.
Right.
And also I'd have the bike, something happen with the bike, and I'd need to put it in the shop, and it'd be there for 2 or 3 days where nice weather would come and go, and I couldn't ride. So this winter I decided I have lots of time, and if I mess something up, I won't be like I'll be without the bike for if I'm without the bike for 4 days while I figure something out. That's not a big deal. So I did what we encourage people to do, and I got on YouTube to watch the many bike repair videos. Bought a few less expensive tools, and decided I'm going to do what they do in at bike shops for tune-ups,
Uh-huh.
and which involves pulling the chain, maybe replacing it. You got to measure the chain because it'll stretch over time. I was getting skipping in the gears when I was in lower gears and going up hills, which is it's like missing a shift in a car. You're going up a hill
Yeah.
Right. And
and you miss the shift. It pretty much stops you dead and almost it wrecks you on the bike. So I had to fix that, and I found that my chain was stretched. So I had to learn how to replace the chain, which involves buying a little tool for about $10 that breaks the chain, uh, getting the correct chain on there, and cleaning all the gears up and all the old oil, and um, uh, from there, just pulling. You got to pull everything apart, and in that you learn so much. I wasn't really doing much but pulling it apart, cleaning it, and putting it back together.
Hmm.
But that alone was a real education for the drivetrain on the bike. But some of the things that were stopping me, like, well, a bike like the one I have, the shifters are up on the handlebars. They're
mm-hmm.
actually integrated into the brakes, and you don't want to work on it like you did when you were a kid. You flip the bike over and rest it on its handlebars and seat, and then you can do all that work. It's not a stable platform, and also I don't want to grind pieces into the ground while I'm working on it. And I needed a bike stand, and I started looking for commercial bike stand costs between $150 and $200.
Ew.
Then I was looking up DIY ones that guys were making out of pipes.
Mm-hmm.
You can out of galvanized water pipe, which those look pretty good too. But then you have to be careful because uh, bikes these days are made out of aluminum and carbon fiber, and you can, if you're not careful when you're clamping into them, you could crush parts of it.
Ooh.
And it's like they're like an aluminum can, where I don't know if you guys ever did this trick when you were younger, or I don't know, bar bet or something, where you can stand on an aluminum can.
Yep.
If you're real careful, you stand on, but if someone just taps the side of it, it crushes, immediately. It's kind of the same way. So if you put a little dent in the bike, you can
It's
you
toast.
can mess up its structural integrity. So I didn't want to do that. And reading through the forums, a guy said everybody's worried about what kind of bike stands they do. I just do this, and I sent you a picture of it,
Right.
which was just in my basement, or you could do this in the garage. I had a $2 strap that I used for strapping things down. Tied it to the handlebars, tied it to the seat post, and it just hang it from the ceiling to do all the work.
Yeah, it's
Which
brilliant and
makes
simple.
it was simple, and it's a real easy way to work on the bike then.
And to get it at the
You
right
can sit on your
height.
stool.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you're not bent over the bike working on stuff, because
Well,
I'm just not.
different things take different heights. I've noticed on the bike. To really work on them effectively, you need to be able to move it up and down some. And so, that looked like an ideal solution.
Right. And so if you need to move it up, you untied one end of it, pulled it tighter, and it raised it up. It was like being on a lift. It was very nice.
So it's kind of you basically used like a ratchet strap that you could get at Harbor Freight or something, and you just went through the ceiling joists in the basement and just wrapped it around the handlebar post and the seat post, and boom, you're done.
Yep, it's exactly what I did. And so, I learned some about maintaining my bike. There's still one thing that I have left to learn. And also it does require a tool that I haven't figured out a cheap way around it. And that's truing the wheels and replacing spokes. That you need a special stand, and you spin the wheel, and it,
I might farm that out to somebody that just had the experience.
That's above my skill level.
That's like taking your car in to have it the tires balanced. You can't really do that yourself. You just take that out and have it balanced.
And just the other day, I popped a spoke on the rear, and this was a mistake I had made. My bike this winter started kind of late. So we were out riding pretty late in the year. I had bought an indoor trainer that I was going to use. I was preparing for the winter, and it ended up coming in and out of the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And then as things happen, life gets in the way, and I just left my bike in the garage for about a month and a half, and that's when the really cold weather hit. And it sat outside in the garage. It was in the garage, but it was below freezing in the garage. And they say that you really don't want to do that with your bikes, because, like anything, when you get temperature swings, that's when things start working their way loose.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, when it got warmer, I just hopped on the bike and started riding without sending it to the shop to have them retension the wheels, retension the spokes, or just give it the once over. Excuse me. And I think that as a result, that's what happened the other day. I had a spoke pop, and now I've got to go to the shop for that one.
Is this a particularly, a delicate bike? Mine doesn't seem to be that delicate. Mine's I think the brand name is Giant. It's kind of a cruiser. It's a heavier bike, I'm sure.
I think that's
what it is. Is it a three-wheeled bike, Rick?
Not yet, Eric. Not yet. But I do. And I really have it set up to be more of a cruiser. I have side saddlebags, and I have a trailer hook now. And when I go around the neighborhood stealing people's leaves, I tow the trailer and bring those home with the bike sometimes. And occasionally I'll just slam on the brakes and throw in the back of the car. But we do try to use it more as a utility vehicle more than like a racing or touring bike.
Absolutely. My bike is it's not I wouldn't call it a racing bike, but it's a road bike, and it's meant to be lighter. So they do tend to straddle that line where they get right up to the edge of being light versus durable.
Right.
And even though I've done stuff to try to make it a little bit more durable, I do like the fact that it's that it's got it is incredible, the difference between this bike and another regular bike. You do feel the difference in power. I thought it was all the engine, the guy on the bike, and to a certain degree it is. But there was a definite difference between a road bike, a light road bike like I have, and they call them, there's cruisers, and then there the the hybrid bikes where they
Right.
don't have the drop handlebars and they've got wider tires on them, and they're really meant to be able to go a little bit off road, and so that they are a little bit more durable that way. But even those bikes, the four or $500 Trek bikes will pop spokes now and again, because I have a group of friends I'm riding with now, and they're going through that as well. So it can happen. Also, I am a bigger guy, Rick.
Well, so am I. And unfortunately, I'm working on it though. I'm working on it.
So
Me too.
my question now is, if I want to like go on a group bike ride, how are you organizing that now? How are you getting in touch with people that want to go on a bike ride?
I don't know if it's a thing. I think it's a thing. Suddenly, and it might be a guys in their 40s thing. All of us, for years, I couldn't get anyone to ride with me, and I had to go on organized rides or try to.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of those cases, it was a little intimidating because they were all cyclists,
Yeah.
and I was just a guy on his bike, and it was a little tough to keep up and stuff. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a group of like 8 or 9 of my friends suddenly wanted to start riding bikes. So just being the guy, on Facebook, you guys have seen it. I post when I go riding and stuff, and
Yep.
out of nowhere, people started approaching me. Hey, can I go riding with you? What do you think? I'm like, yeah, sounds great. So now it's a group of my friends, and it's not. We're all at the same level. Some of us are lighter and faster,
Mm-hmm.
but more or less, we all ride together, and the keep up with the weakest link. Nobody gets dropped from a ride. That's kind of how that happened. But I think, like anything, I don't know what it was. 5-6 years ago, I got into cooking and gardening, and suddenly, and I was vocal about it. Suddenly, I'm on a podcast.
Yeah. Oops.
And I've got friends who do it.
See,
It's
you're a
I
thought
think,
leader.
the social butterfly, maybe, I don't know.
So a way to do it would someone would say, "Hey, I got a bike I want to ride, but I don't want to kill myself. Does anyone else want to go?" On Facebook,
Well,
you could basically say that.
Yeah, that's one way. Another way is just about every bike shop does rides, does organized rides.
Oh, there you go.
And yeah, you go to the local bike shop and see what's on the board, or you just ask them. And a lot of times they'll meet there like early in the morning on a weekend, and they'll go for a ride, and they'll often post what it's going to be. It's going to be 10 miles sometimes they do family rides to the local restaurant and then back. Sometimes it's longer rides. If you're just getting into it, what you're interested in finding is something that's called a no drop ride, which means you don't get dropped off at the end. If you're riding too slow, the whole group slows down for you. And it's understood that it's not meant for grinding out a long 50-mile ride at 20 miles an hour.
Right.
It's not the Tour de France. You're just going on a nice bike ride with a group of people. And just in my area, there's got to be half a dozen bike shops within a 20-minute drive. And if one group doesn't work for you, go to the next one. Until you find what you like, or just Googling bike cycling clubs in your area, and they have varying levels. They'll have some that are just for people just wanting to get out and do leisurely bike rides and be social, and others all the way to the other end. But boy, what are some of the things that you've used? What they're like meetups and stuff like that? My wife did something like that with women in the area.
Yeah, you could use Meetup too. They're pretty plugged in.
Yeah. And, around here, just all of a sudden, cycling has gotten really big. And the city's beginning to take a notice and really provide trails and special bike lanes. They even widened a particularly scenic but dangerous piece of road and put in dedicated bike lanes on it because we lost so many tourists there that they were worried about the effects. But this is a perfect bicycling area because it's so flat. In fact, most of the bikes here, probably when they sell them, we call them beach cruisers, and most of them come equipped with a holder for your beer bottle. I mean, it's rather relaxed.
There's a town near where my sister lives, and she lives in the suburbs of a big city. And this particular cyclist had a GoPro camera on his helmet, and he's like a serious biker. He bikes to work. And the mayor of the town that he was bicycling through pulls up next to him and tells him to get off his roads. So, of course, the bicyclists put this up on the internet, and I'm pretty sure that mayor is out of a job.
Oh, wow. Well, there is tension, particularly rush hour, between and the rat packers. When the hardcore cyclists that are long distance and they're training together, and you get 40 of them in a pack, and they're there during rush hour. There's some tension there between the commuters and those folks. But generally, they tend here to leave bikers alone, I think, pretty much.
That's good. There's an issue in our small town upstate here where there is a group of local cyclists, and I love that, but they ride 3 or 4 in a row, and when there's a car coming up behind them, they won't move. And it's creating some tension in the town. It's like, Mike, you can comment on this, but I would think that you might want to go to a single line formation to allow the car to go by.
There's there are rude drivers and there's rude cyclists.
There you go.
And on both sides, and it's tough. By and large, people don't want to get hit, so they get out of the way.
Yeah.
But in some cases, you get some hard-headed guys who are like, well, this is my road too, and I'm not moving out of my way. You can pass me. If I was a slow car, you'd pass me. But really, when we ride in most clubs I've ridden with, there's a system of shouts that go on, car back, car front, coming to a stop, you're pointing down at gravel in the road or potholes coming up and all that. And, when you get the signal car back, that means go single file. Like we might go 2 abreast or 3 abreast if it's a backcountry road that not much is going on. But yeah, as soon as there's a car anywhere near, we go single file, and that's been my experience with any group of riders I've been with. Now there may be some groups that are just like I said. I can't speak for the ones locally, but if they're hard headed, the saying is share the road, which means give cyclists their part of the road to ride on, but also bikes don't sit in the way and block traffic. Let the guys pass.
I mean, it's a small minority. It's only 3 or 4 people amongst a ton of bikers that come through our town. So, all right, that's just my question. So
yeah.
All right, so
anyway, there's the pause.
Well, anyway, I did want to say though, it happens every winter. There's a certain day on this beautiful road I was telling you about that they widened and made bike lanes. And people think that just because they're in the bike lanes, they do not need particularly red flashing lights facing to the rear because there's daylight. And there are particular days when it is so shaded there and you're driving directly into the sun that I have lost bikers. I know that they're up there somewhere, and I'm driving along this road and I can't see them at all. And so, always put a flashing light on the back end of that bike. It's not going to hurt you.
Well, that's a new habit that I think is coming from newer technologies and also just more people getting on the road and word spreading. It wasn't that long ago where if it wasn't dark, you didn't turn your headlights on your car. Now you see people with their headlights on all the time.
Right.
Yeah, that's me.
In the rain or even during the day, just so they're more visible. In not too long ago, to get a really visible light on your bike, it took quite a lot. It wasn't, you just had these dull incandescent bulbs.
Yeah.
In order to get them bright enough, you had a big battery on your bike and stuff. But now, over the past few years, they've gotten these really light, bright LEDs.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
you're seeing that more and more, blinking LEDs on bikes, because people want to be seen. They don't know, guy on a bike doesn't want to get hit. And in my group, at least, day or night, our lights go on so people can see us. Just to be anything to be more visible, and usually there's blinking involved just to, when you're driving, you kind of get in that mode sometimes where you're paying attention, but sometimes you need something that's different to break up the eye line and make it obvious that there's something that you need to be paying attention to coming up.
I've noticed
I
that.
think you're going to see that more and more.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I ride with a forward flashing white light, and when I started doing that, people left turning in front of me and cutting me off almost stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Because they could see me a little better, or at least they noticed me more. So that was kind of a revelation.
Yeah, I've got something on the back of my bike now. It's got about 5 LEDs. It straps to the I don't know what you call them, the tubes that hold the rear wheel. And I think it was like $15, and it runs a whole season off of just some coin cell batteries, like watch batteries.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's really small. It straps on really quickly, and it's super bright and blinky, and there's not much to it. And you're seeing this in a lot of bike shops, it'll be right up at the cash register. It's almost like an impulse buy.
Right.
So I think you'll see that more and more, where people are putting, blinking lights on their bike to be visible, because it's getting easier to do and more effective.
Right. Well, now people are sticking them to the back of their helmets and on the back of their bikes, and one on each shoulder. I mean, sometimes they can get a little carried away, but it's all right.
I'm a UFO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I actually have to get going. I have to go talk beekeeping with a friend of mine.
Oh, well, isn't that interesting?
Oh, no.
I think it's interesting you have friends.
Tell me. Go. Me and Rick are going to talk.
I saw your that you lost a hive.
I lost 3 hives.
All of them?
No, I have 4. One is still alive. So
damn.
We could talk about that. And you also lost a hive. We can talk about that in our next episode.
Yeah. I don't know what we're going to do. Anyway, I lost 2 actually, but
we had some great iTunes reviews, which we're going to read on our next show.
Okay.
It was really nice that 3 people so far. If you guys write a review for us in the Garden Fork Radio page on iTunes, it really helps with our ranking on iTunes and the searchability of the show as well.
Do you know, can you renew your review? Does that help? If you've already written, like I wrote a review 5 years ago or whatever.
You could write another one. Yeah, there's people who have written multiple. Use keywords like DIY and cooking, Either one. Thank you for listening. And Mike, thank you for taking the time.
Oh, it's good to hear your voice, Mike.
Oh, thanks for having me.
All right, we'll see you all later.
Okay, talk to you later, my friends. Bye-bye.
Garden Fork's theme music is used under license from uniquetracks.com.